In the vast expanse of space, the Galactic Council ruled with an iron fist. The Council was made up of powerful and ancient alien species who believed in the survival of the fittest. They followed a strict code, determining the fate of many races based on their strength, resources, and usefulness. The Xilari, a peaceful and fragile race of beings, had always been looked down upon. They were gentle and kind, but their bodies were weak, and their technology was far behind the other civilizations. When the Xilari first joined the Galactic Council, they hoped for a chance to be part of the greater galaxy. But their hopes were dashed when the Council decided that they were of no use to the greater good. They had no advanced weapons or armies to offer, and their small, quiet world was not rich in resources. The Xilari's peaceful nature made them seem weak to the Council. In the eyes of the powerful races, the Xilari were nothing more than a burden, a race too fragile to survive in the harshness of the galaxy. One fateful day, the Council voted to cast the Xilari out. The decision was swift and cold. The Xilari were no longer welcome in the galaxy. Their homeworld was stripped from them, and their people were forced to leave, with nowhere to go. It was a cruel fate for a race that had only ever wished for peace and kindness. The Xilari were abandoned, left to float aimlessly in space, seeking refuge from the endless void that surrounded them. For many cycles, they drifted. Their ships were old and falling apart. The resources they carried were running low, and their spirits were even lower. The Xilari had no place to go. They had nowhere to turn. Every civilization they tried to contact rejected them, coldly shutting their doors. Even the once mighty Galactic Council refused to help, calling them lost causes. Their hopes slowly began to fade. They began to believe that maybe they were not meant to survive, that the galaxy had no place for them. They saw other species with powerful fleets and weapons, while they had only the strength of their will to survive. No matter how hard they tried, no matter how far they traveled, there was no place for them in the stars. Then, in the darkest hour, a new opportunity appeared. The Xilari fleet, weary and broken, came upon a small human-controlled sector. It was a part of space where humanity had carved out a place for themselves, far from the more powerful civilizations. The humans were a young race, still finding their way in the galaxy, but they had something that no other species seemed to have: hope. When the Xilari ships first appeared in human space, they expected the same treatment they had received from every other race: rejection, disdain, and perhaps even hostility. But something different happened. The human fleet, instead of turning them away, welcomed them with open arms. It was an unexpected and shocking turn of events. Humanity, a race considered insignificant by the larger powers of the galaxy, had chosen to offer the Xilari what no one else had: the chance to survive. The Xilari didn't understand it. Why would these humans, who were considered weak by the Galactic Council, offer help? What did they want in return? The Xilari had nothing to offer them, no resources or advanced technology. Yet humanity didn't see them as burdens. They saw them as beings worthy of life, worth protecting. The leader of the human fleet, a kind and wise captain named Aiden, spoke to the Xilari through their communication systems. "You are not alone. We will help you," he said. "We have fought for our place in this galaxy. We will fight for yours, too." For the first time in cycles, the Xilari felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe they had found a place where they could live, a place where they were seen not as weak or worthless, but as equals. The humans didn't see them as something to discard. They didn't turn their backs when everyone else had. As the Xilari ships slowly entered the human sector, the captain's words echoed in their minds. "We will help you." They didn't know it yet, but the Xilari were about to receive the greatest gift of all: a second chance, a chance to live, to rebuild, and to find hope once more. For now, they were no longer outcasts. They had found a home, at least for the time being. And that was more than they had ever hoped for in the cold expanse of space. The humans had made their decision, and it was a bold one. When the Xilari fleet arrived in their space, Captain Aiden and his crew did not hesitate. Despite knowing the risk, they chose to offer the auxiliary sanctuary. It was a choice that many might call foolish. The Galactic Council, after all, had already made their judgment. To help the auxiliary would mean defying the powerful forces that ruled the galaxy. But humanity had always been different. They were a young and stubborn species, and when it came to doing what was right, they would not back down. Captain Aiden stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the small group of auxiliary ships that had now entered their space. The sight of them, worn and broken, moved him deeply. These peaceful beings, who had been abandoned by every other civilization, deserved a chance to live. And humanity was going to give them that chance, no matter the cost. "We can't turn our backs on them," Aiden said quietly, his voice firm with resolve. "We can't let them be lost forever." His officers exchanged uneasy glances. They knew the dangers involved. The Galactic Council had a powerful military fleet, and they would not tolerate disobedience. The Council would see this as a direct challenge to their authority. Aiden knew that helping the auxiliary could mean war, but he also knew that it was the right thing to do. "What about the Council, sir?" Lieutenant Miller asked, his voice cautious. "They won't just ignore this. We could be making a huge mistake." Aiden turned to face him. "I've seen what the Council does to races they deem unworthy. I've seen their cruelty. I won't be part of that. We're giving the auxiliary something no one else has, a chance to survive." The officers were silent. They all understood the gravity of the situation. Humanity was not a powerful species in the galaxy, at least not yet. They had a small fleet and few allies. They had built their place among the stars through grit and determination, not through strength or numbers. But now they had to stand up for what they believed in, and they would not do so alone. The humans began working quickly to help the auxiliary. They provided them with food, medicine, and supplies that the refugees desperately needed. The auxiliary were weak and ill from their long journey through space, and their ships were barely functional. Humanity, however, was skilled in repairs and technology. They had learned to survive in a galaxy where they were often seen as outsiders. And now, they would use that knowledge to help those who had been rejected. As the humans worked to rebuild the auxiliary fleet and give them a safe place to stay, the auxiliary leaders were both grateful and confused. Why would these humans risk everything for them? What did they expect in return? The auxiliary had no powerful weapons or advanced technology to offer. Their race had been broken, scattered, and abandoned. But Captain Aiden's actions spoke louder than any words could. The humans weren't helping because they wanted something in return. They were helping because they believed in the value of life, no matter how small or weak that life may seem. The auxiliary leaders met with Aiden in a quiet room aboard his ship. The leader, an elderly auxiliary named Thalora, spoke softly. "Why are you doing this? We are nothing to you. We are not powerful. We have no riches. We have nothing to offer you." Aiden met her gaze and smiled gently. "It's not about what you can offer us. It's about what's right. No one should ever be abandoned. Not like this. You deserve a future, and we're going to help you find it." Thalora's eyes filled with tears. She had never imagined that any species would care for them, let alone offer help when every other civilization had turned them away. "Thank you," she whispered. "We don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to," Aiden said, his voice warm. "We're doing this because it's the right thing to do." As the days passed, the auxiliary grew stronger. They slowly began to rebuild their ships with the help of the humans. The sight of the auxiliary working alongside the humans was a powerful one. It showed the strength of cooperation and the bond that could be formed when two very different species chose to help each other. The auxiliary had once believed they were alone, lost in the galaxy with nowhere to turn. But now they had found a home among the humans, a place where they were welcome and valued. However, as much as the humans had given, they were also aware of the danger they faced. The Galactic Council would not sit idly by. Humanity was taking a risk, and that risk could lead to a confrontation that they were not prepared for. The Council had the power to crush them if they chose to, but for now, humanity held on to the hope that their actions would be enough to inspire others. If they stood together, they might just have a chance to change the galaxy, for the better. But that hope would be tested soon. The Xilari were not the only ones watching. The Council was already aware of humanity's actions, and their response would come. The tension in the galaxy was rising. Captain Aiden and his crew had given their all to help the Xilari, and in return, the Xilari were becoming stronger, more hopeful. The sight of their ships being repaired, their sick and wounded receiving medical care, brought a sense of accomplishment and unity. But the looming threat of the Galactic Council was always in the back of Aiden's mind. He knew that they would not stand by and let this act of kindness go unchallenged. The humans and Xilari worked side by side, building a new future for the once-forgotten race. In the quiet of their ships, shared meals and moments of rest, the bond between the two species grew stronger. Yet the shadow of the Council loomed large, and with each passing day, the reality of the consequences became more real. The Council had eyes everywhere. Its spies were scattered throughout the galaxy, watching the movements of all civilizations, especially the ones considered less important, like humanity. When word reached the Council about the human decision to shelter the Xilari, they were furious. A small, insignificant species like humanity had dared to defy them. The very idea of such a thing enraged the Council leaders. A council meeting was called. In a grand chamber located on a massive space station, representatives of all the major galactic species gathered. The room was filled with towering figures, their alien features cold and impassive. Among them was a high-ranking council member, Varnock, who had long despised the human race for its defiance of the established order. "The humans are defying the laws of the Council," Varnock declared, his voice like ice. "They are harboring a weak and useless race. This cannot be allowed. They are challenging the very foundation of our power." His words were met with murmurs of agreement. A massive alien species, the Vorath, added, "The Xilari are of no use to us. Why should we allow them to live? They must be removed from the galaxy. And the humans who are protecting them, they need to be shown their place." Varnock's eyes gleamed as he turned to face the assembly. "We will not tolerate disobedience. The humans will learn that no one defies the Council and lives to tell the tale." Back in human space, Captain Aiden could feel the pressure building. It was only a matter of time before the Council made its move. The Xilari had no way of defending themselves. Their ships, though being repaired by the humans, were still too weak to face the might of the Council's forces. Aiden knew that they couldn't hide forever. The battle that was coming would not be easy. "We have to prepare for the worst," Aiden said to his officers as they gathered around a large holographic map. "We know the Council will come. We can't outfight them, but we can outsmart them." Lieutenant Miller, always practical, looked at the map. "We could scatter the fleet, make them think we're spread out. If we play our cards right, we might be able to buy some time." Aiden nodded, his mind already racing through their options. "That's one possibility. But I'm not sure we have enough time. The Council will move quickly, and they won't hesitate to destroy everything in their path." Their meeting was interrupted by a sudden transmission from the Xilari leader, Thalora. Her voice was filled with worry and determination. "Captain, we are ready to leave. The Council's fleet is approaching our location." Aiden's heart sank. It had begun. The battle they had been dreading was now a reality. "Stay calm, Thalora. We're preparing defenses. We won't let them take you." But deep down, Aiden knew it was going to be a fight unlike any humanity had faced before. The Council was powerful. They controlled the galaxy's most advanced fleets and had an army capable of wiping out entire civilizations. Humanity had nothing on that scale. But what they did have, what made them different, was their ingenuity and determination. The Xilari had come to humanity for help, and now humanity would not back down. Aiden's crew knew that the risks were immense. They were about to face a force far stronger than their own, but their courage was unyielding. If they were to survive, they would have to use every resource, every skill they had learned as a young species just beginning to make their mark in the galaxy. "Prepare the fleet," Aiden ordered. "We stand together. This is our fight now." As the human ships powered up and the Xilari prepared their repaired vessels, the stars seemed to hold their breath. The coming battle would not only decide the fate of the Xilari, but it would also shape the future of humanity in the galaxy. Would they be crushed by the overwhelming power of the Council, or would they rise above it, proving that even the smallest of species could change the course of history? The answer lay in the unknown, in the upcoming battle that would test everything humanity stood for. But one thing was certain: humanity was no longer an insignificant race in the eyes of the galaxy. They had proven that they could make a difference. Now they would prove that they would fight for what was right, no matter the cost. The tension was palpable. Humanity's fleet, now joined by the rebuilt Xilari ships, stood ready. The Xilari, once on the brink of extinction, now had a glimmer of hope in their eyes. They had been abandoned by every other race in the galaxy, but the humans had shown them kindness, risking everything to help them survive. Now that hope was about to be put to the test. Captain Aiden stood at the command console, his face grim. The holographic display before him showed the approach of the Galactic Council's fleet. It was massive, 100 warships, each brimming with advanced technology and weaponry, moved toward them like an unstoppable wave. The Council's forces were not known for mercy. Once they set their sights on a target, they would stop at nothing to destroy it. The Xilari didn't stand a chance on their own, but with humanity at their side, there was a slim chance, just a slim one, that they might survive. "Time to make our stand," Aiden muttered under his breath. "Captain, the Council fleet is entering our range," Lieutenant Miller reported from his station. "They're moving fast. We don't have much time." Aiden nodded, his mind racing. "Prepare the fleet. We need to hold them off for as long as possible. I want every ship ready to fight." The humans and Xilari were not trained soldiers, but they had something the Council could not account for: determination. The Xilari, with their advanced knowledge of the stars, helped guide the humans in their defense. They worked together, creating strategies that made the best use of their limited resources. Every moment counted. On the Xilari ships, Philora and the other leaders watched nervously as their crew prepared for battle. They had never fought before, and the thought of taking on the mighty Council was terrifying. But they knew that they had no other choice. The humans had given them a chance, and they had to defend it, no matter what. "I don't know if we can win this," Philora whispered to her second-in-command, Orcs. "But we have to try. We owe them everything." Orcs looked at her, his face set with determination. "We may be a small fleet, but we're not without strength. The humans have already shown us what it means to stand together. If we fight as they have fought for us, we can hold our ground." The first blast of energy from the Council's warships hit their defensive shields with a violent force, shaking the entire fleet. The humans and Xilari immediately returned fire, but it was clear that their weapons were no match for the sheer power of the Council's forces. Aiden watched in horror as one of the Xilari ships was hit and began to spiral out of control. He could hear the crackle of the comms as the crew of the doomed ship sent out their final messages. "We can't keep this up much longer," Lieutenant Miller said, his voice strained. "Their ships are too powerful. We're outgunned." But Aiden refused to give up. "We're not out of options yet. There's still one last card to play." Aiden turned to his communications officer, Commander Jackson. "Send a distress signal to every ship in the galaxy. We need reinforcements now." Jackson hesitated. "Captain, the Council will know we're calling for help. It's risky." "I know," Aiden said, "but we have no other choice. If we don't get reinforcements, we won't survive." The message was sent, and all they could do now was hope. Every minute that passed felt like an eternity as the battle raged on. The humans and Scifi fought with everything they had, but it was clear that they were losing. The Council's forces were too much for them to handle, and yet they kept fighting, determined to protect the Scifi, to honor the promise they had made. Back on the Scifi ships, Flora watched as the humans fought with unwavering courage. She had never seen such bravery. These were not warriors, yet they fought like heroes. She knew that no matter what happened, the Scifi would forever be in their debt. "Captain, we've lost communication with the outer fleet," Lieutenant Miller reported urgently. "They've been destroyed." Aiden's heart sank. They were being overwhelmed. But then, a miracle happened. The stars seemed to shift, and suddenly, reinforcements appeared out of nowhere. Dozens of human ships, along with ships from other civilizations who had received the distress call, arrived just in time. "They came," Aiden said in disbelief. "They really came." The new arrivals charged into the fray, turning the tide of the battle. The Council, caught off guard by the unexpected reinforcements, struggled to regroup. The humans and their allies pushed forward, fighting with renewed vigor. But the battle was far from over. The Council had not yet given up. Their forces were still strong, and they had many more tricks up their sleeves. The fight for the Scifi's survival was only beginning. With the odds now in their favor, Aiden knew that this was humanity's moment. They had stood up to the Council and shown the galaxy that they would fight for what was right. The Scifi had found a new family in the humans, and together they would face whatever challenges came their way. The Council had underestimated them, and now they would learn that humanity was not to be ignored. The battle was far from over. Although the Council's fleet had been forced to retreat temporarily, the humans and the Scifi knew that they couldn't afford to let their guard down. Aiden stood on the command bridge, his hands gripping the railing, his mind spinning with thoughts of the next move. The reinforcements they had received were a huge help, but they were still outnumbered, and the Council's forces were relentless. "We've won the first round," Lieutenant Miller said, breaking the silence. "But they'll be back. We need a plan to finish this before they regroup." Aiden nodded. He knew Miller was right. "We've bought some time, but the Council won't just let us go. They're too proud, too powerful." Flora, the leader of the Scifi, entered the command room with a determined look on her face. Her species had been through so much, and now they were fighting for their future. The humans had saved them once, but could they do it again? "The battle isn't over yet," she said, her voice calm but firm. "The Council will return, and we need to be ready. But we must also think about what happens after the battle. If we survive, we need to rebuild. We need a place where we can be safe from them." Aiden looked at her, understanding what she meant. The Scifi didn't have a home anymore. Their world had been destroyed, their civilization scattered. They couldn't just keep running forever. They needed a new beginning, a place where they could rebuild and live in peace. "Agreed," Aiden said. "But first, we need to win this fight. And to do that, we need to make sure the Council understands one thing. We're not backing down. We'll fight for the Scifi, and we'll fight for our right to exist." Flora smiled. "That's why we're fighting alongside you. You've shown us what it means to never give up. We will stand with you, no matter the cost." The message was clear. The humans and the Scifi were no longer just allies. They were family, and family didn't abandon each other, no matter how tough the fight. Meanwhile, the Council's leaders were seething with anger. Varnock, the Council member who had led the charge to destroy the Scifi, paced back and forth in the Council chambers. He had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now he was paying the price. The humans had not only saved the Scifi, but they had also proven that they could stand up to the might of the Council. "We cannot let this continue," Varnock growled. "The humans must be taught a lesson. They have embarrassed us, and if we allow them to succeed, it will set a dangerous precedent. We cannot allow weaker species to defy us." The other Council members nodded, agreeing with Varnock's assessment. The humans had proven themselves dangerous, and their support of the Xilari was a challenge to the very authority of the council. But they weren't finished yet. "We will strike again," Varnock declared. "This time, we will not fail." Back on the human fleet, Aiden gathered his officers for one final strategy meeting. They knew that the council was preparing for another assault, and this time they had to be ready. The last battle had shown them that the council was strong, but it had also shown them that they were capable of surprising the enemy. "We've learned a lot from the last encounter," Aiden said, his voice steady. "The council is powerful, but they're not invincible. We've seen cracks in their armor. Our goal now is to exploit those weaknesses. We need to hit them where it hurts." Lieutenant Miller nodded. "We've got the technology from the Xilari. If we can find a way to use it to disrupt their weapon systems, we might be able to turn the tide in our favor." Aiden looked around at the faces of his crew. They were tired, but their resolve was stronger than ever. "It's going to be a tough fight, but we're not doing this just for ourselves. We're doing it for the Xilari. We're doing it for the future." As the fleet prepared for the next battle, Thalora and the Xilari warriors trained alongside the humans, learning how to fight with the new technologies they had been given. The Xilari were fast learners, and though they had no experience with war, they were determined to do whatever it took to protect their people and their new allies. "We may not be warriors by nature," Thalora said as she stood beside Aiden on the training deck, "but we are not helpless. We will fight, and we will win." Aiden smiled at her. "You've already proven that. Together, we're stronger than any enemy." The countdown to the next battle began, and everyone on the fleet knew that the fate of both the Xilari and humanity rested on their shoulders. The council had underestimated them once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. And as the final battle loomed on the horizon, Aiden knew one thing for certain. No matter what happened, they would fight with everything they had. The Xilari were no longer alone, and neither were the humans. Together, they would stand strong against the overwhelming might of the council, and together they would carve a new future for themselves. The fleet was ready. Tensions ran high, and the air was thick with anticipation. Humanity and the Xilari had done everything they could to prepare, but the final battle was fast approaching. This time, they would face the full might of the Galactic Council. There was no room for mistakes. If they failed, not only would the Xilari be wiped out, but humanity could suffer a similar fate. Captain Aiden stood at the command bridge, his eyes scanning the holographic map in front of him. He could feel the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. The entire fate of both civilizations was now in his hands. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. This battle would not be like any they had fought before. The council had seen their strength, and they were coming with everything they had. "We're as ready as we can be," Lieutenant Miller said, his voice tight with determination. "The Xilari's technology is fully integrated, and our new weapons are online. If we strike quickly, we might be able to do some real damage." "Good," Aiden replied, turning to face the rest of the crew. "This is it. We fight for our future, for the Xilari's future, no matter the cost." On the Xilari ships, Thalora and her fellow leaders gathered in their war room. Their ships had been outfitted with human technology, and they were eager to use it. Their people had never fought a battle like this before, but they had learned quickly. They had trained with the humans, practicing their new weapons and tactics. They had also learned from humanity's bravery, something that Xilari had never truly understood before. "We've come so far," Thalora said, looking at the Xilari leaders. "But this fight will determine everything. We can't afford to fail." Orcs, her second in command, nodded. "We will not fail. Not with the humans by our side." Meanwhile, in the depths of the council's warship, Varnock was preparing for the final confrontation. He had studied the human tactics and the ways they had fought alongside the Xilari. It troubled him. The humans were clever, and their unexpected alliances had made them unpredictable. But this time, he vowed, they would not escape unscathed. They'd been a thorn in our side for far too long, Varnock snarled, pacing back and forth. This time, we crush them. The Exilari will be eliminated, and the humans will learn their place. The Council's fleet was approaching fast, and the final battle was about to begin. Back on the human fleet, Aiden addressed his crew one last time. Everyone knows what's at stake. We have one shot at this. The Exilari are depending on us, and we can't let them down. We hold nothing back. The battle began with a deafening roar as the two fleets collided. The Council's ships, larger and more advanced, unleashed their firepower first. The human and Siluri fleets responded in kind, with a barrage of energy blasts and missiles lighting up the void of space. Aiden watched the chaos unfold on the command bridge. His fingers flew over the controls as he directed his ships, moving them in tight formations, striking at the Council's weaknesses. The humans had learned quickly to use the Siluri's technology, and it made them formidable. Their ships were faster, more agile, and better equipped than ever before. The Exilari were no longer passive. They fought with courage, using their newfound knowledge of human tactics to strike alongside them. Felora's ship flew with grace and precision, her hand steady on the controls as she led the charge. The Exilari warriors had found a new sense of purpose, fighting not just for survival, but for their right to exist. "We can do this," Felora whispered to herself, focusing on the battle ahead. "We must do this." The fight raged on, with both sides suffering heavy losses, but the humans and Siluri refused to back down. Each ship, each crew member, fought with everything they had. The Council's fleet was powerful, but it was no longer unbeatable. The humans' ingenuity and the Exilari's advanced knowledge created a deadly combination. Slowly but surely they began to push the Council back. Despite their best efforts, the Council began to falter. Their ships were damaged, their coordination slipping as the humans and Siluri pushed forward. The Council had never expected such a fierce resistance. Varnock seethed with frustration as his fleet struggled to maintain control. "We will not lose," Varnock roared, his voice trembling with fury. "Bring the reinforcements." But it was too late. The reinforcements arrived, but they were not enough. The human and Siluri fleets, working together, launched one final assault, breaking through the Council's defenses and crippling their forces. Aiden felt a surge of hope as he saw the Council's ships begin to retreat. The humans and Siluri had done it. They had won. "We did it," Lieutenant Miller shouted, a wide grin on his face. "We actually did it." Aiden allowed himself a brief smile before turning to Felora. She stood beside him, her eyes filled with gratitude and relief. "We're not done yet," Felora said, her voice calm but filled with determination. "This victory is just the beginning. We will rebuild. Together." The battle had been hard, but they had won. Humanity and the Exilari had fought side by side and proved that they were stronger together. They had shown the galaxy that no one, no matter how powerful, could stand against them when they fought for each other. Now, they would rebuild, and they would make sure that the Council would never threaten their people again. The final battle had been fierce, but now, the dust was settling. The once mighty Council's fleet had been shattered, and their leaders were in retreat. Humanity and the Exilari had emerged victorious, but the war had taken its toll. The victory was sweet, but it came with the weight of everything they had lost. Captain Aiden stood on the command bridge, looking out at the stars. The peaceful silence of space was a sharp contrast to the chaos of the battle they had just fought. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound. It was hard to believe that just hours ago they had been locked in the fight for their lives. "We did it," Lieutenant Miller said, his voice quiet with disbelief. "We really did it." Aiden nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. While the Council had been defeated, there was still so much to be done. The Exilari had lost their homeworld, their families, and their way of life. It would take years, maybe decades, for them to rebuild. But now, They had a chance. They had hope. Thalora, the leader of the Xilari, entered the room, her face weary but determined. She had fought beside the humans and had seen the courage they displayed in the heat of battle. They had shown the Xilari that they were not just allies. They were family. "Aiden," she said, her voice steady, "we've won. But what comes next?" Aiden turned to her. "Rebuilding," he said simply. "We have to rebuild. Together." Thalora nodded, her eyes filled with both hope and sorrow. "We have nothing left. But we have each other." "Exactly," Aiden replied. "And we'll make sure you have a future. No one gets left behind. Not now. Not ever." The humans had proven that they could stand up to the might of the Council. They had risked everything to help the Xilari, and in doing so, they had forged a bond that was stronger than any weapon. The Council had underestimated them, but now the galaxy knew better. It was a new beginning for both the humans and the Xilari. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. They had to rebuild the Xilari's shattered civilization, find a new home for them, and ensure that the Council would never threaten them again. Aiden and Thalora stood side by side, looking out at the stars. They both knew the journey ahead would be long and difficult, but they also knew they wouldn't have to face it alone. Back on Earth, humanity celebrated. The victory was more than just a military triumph. It was a testament to the strength and determination of the human spirit. The humans had not only saved an alien race, but they had also proven to the galaxy that they would no longer be pushed around. They had made their mark, and it was one that would not be forgotten. As the days passed, the humans and the Xilari worked together to chart a path forward. The Xilari, with their advanced technology, helped the humans rebuild their damaged fleets and improve their defenses. The humans, in turn, shared their knowledge of resilience, determination, and hope. The two races had become more than just allies. They were partners, bound together by the fight for survival. Thalora and Aiden continued to meet often, discussing their plans for the future. They had already begun to search for a new home for the Xilari, a place where they could rebuild and start anew. It would take time, but with the help of humanity, it was possible. "I never thought I would see a future like this," Thalora said one evening, gazing at the stars. "A future where the Xilari have a chance to rebuild." Aiden smiled. "You've earned it. And so have we. This is only the beginning." The humans had proved their strength, not through violence or force, but through their willingness to stand up for what was right. They had refused to let the Xilari fall, even when the galaxy's most powerful forces had tried to crush them. Now they would make sure that the Xilari had a future, one where they could thrive and grow. The war had ended, but the true victory lay in the promise of tomorrow. A new dawn was rising, and humanity and the Xilari would face it together. For the first time in a long while, Aiden felt a sense of peace. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape. And with the Xilari by their side, they would make sure it was a future worth fighting for. As the ships of the human fleet and the Xilari ships drifted toward a new horizon, both races knew that their bond was unbreakable. The galaxy had seen the strength of humanity, and now it would see the strength of unity. The humans had chosen to protect the abandoned, and in doing so, they had forged a new path for the galaxy, a path built on hope, courage, and the unwavering belief that no one should ever be left behind.